Hello there. Assalamu alaikum. This is your storyteller, Miss Ikra. Yes, I'm back. I know you had been waiting for the second part of the story that we left in the mid. Do you remember which story I'm talking about? Yes, I'm talking about the story called The Little Princess. Do you remember the name of that little princess? You're right. Her name was Sarah Crew. So now is the time to get started and read along the leftover 3 chapters. Chapter number 4, In the Attic. That first night in the attic, Sarah lay awake in the dark. She could hear rats scuffling in the walls. "My father's dead," she sobbed. "I'll never see him again." Everything in Sarah's life changed at once. When she came down the next morning, Lavinia had taken her place next to Miss Mitchell. "You're late, Sarah," said Miss Mitchell coldly. "Don't let it happen again. Begin your new duties by looking after the little ones." Every day, Sarah was sent on errand after errand. She was expected to go out in all weathers and to dust and scrub the rooms. At the end of each busy day, Miss Mitchell sent her to the schoolroom to study, so she would learn enough to teach the younger pupils. Over time, Sarah's frocks grew shorter and shabbier, and she became thin and pale. The other pupils stopped talking to her. "To think she was the girl with the diamond mines," scoffed Lavinia. "Now she's nothing." "I won't cry," thought Sarah, biting hard on her lip. "I won't." Her only friend was Becky. They had little chance to talk during the day, but each night Becky crept into Sarah's room. "Let's pretend this room is covered in thick, soft rugs," said Sarah. "Over in the corner, there's a little sofa with cushions you can curl upon, and a blazing fire." "Oh," said Becky, stretching out her hands. "I can almost feel it, miss." But once Becky had left, Sarah's vision faded from her mind, and the attic was as cold and bare as before. Sometimes, Sarah thought, it feels like the loneliest place in the world. Chapter 5, The Magic. One morning, on her way back from the butcher's, Sarah saw that a van full of furniture had stopped outside the empty house next door. "Someone must be moving in," thought Sarah, glancing at the pieces of furniture. She had a weird, homesick feeling. They reminded her of the things they had in India. "An English gentleman has moved in," Becky told her that night. "He's come from India and his name is Mr. Carrisford." He's rich, but he's been very ill. When Sarah next looked out of a window, she heard an odd little squeaky sound coming from the next door attic. Sarah looked over and saw an Indian manservant. "A Lascar," she said to herself. He was holding a small chattering monkey. As the Lascar smiled at her, his hold on the monkey must have loosened. Suddenly, it broke free, ran across the slates, and jumped into Sarah's attic. "Shall I try and catch him?" Sarah called to the Lascar. "No need, Missy Sahib," he answered. "I, Ram Das, will come and get him." In no time, he had skipped across the rooftops and slipped through her skylight. Ram Das bowed to Sarah, then caught the monkey with ease. "My master is very fond of this little one," he said, stroking the monkey. He thanked Sarah, bowed once more, and went back across the rooftops. "He spoke to me as if I were a princess, not a servant girl," thought Sarah. "My clothes might be in rags, but maybe I can still be a princess inside." Meanwhile, in the house next door, Ram Das was telling his master about the little girl in the attic. "Poor thing," said Mr. Carrisford. He looked up at his friend. "Do you suppose, Phillips," he said slowly, "that the child I am looking for is living like the little girl next door?" "No," said Mr. Phillips soothingly. "I am sure the little girl you are looking for is the one in Paris, and she seems to be in good hands." "I can't be sure," Mr. Carrisford replied. "After all, her name is different. They pronounced it Carew instead of Crew." "But the circumstances are so similar," said Mr. Phillips. "An English officer places his motherless little girl in a school, then dies suddenly after losing a fortune." "You are sure the child was left in Paris?" Mr. Phillips went on. "I am sure of nothing," said Mr. Carrisford. "When I met Ralph Crewe in India, all we spoke of were the diamond mines. I must find his daughter. If she is penniless, it's my fault. Crewe died thinking I was a villain. If only I hadn't been sick, I could have told him we hadn't lost the money." "Try not to worry," said Mr. Phillips. "I'll leave for Paris tonight and I'll find his daughter." Mr. Carrisford turned to Ram Das. "In the meantime," he said, "let's do something for the little girl in the attic." That night, Ram Das slipped silently into Sarah's attic as she slept. He padded noiselessly across the room, weaving his magic. Sarah stirred as her skylight clicked shut. "How strange," she thought. "My room is so warm, And I can actually feel blankets. I must be dreaming. I don't want to open my eyes, she thought, or this dream will fade. But it felt so real she couldn't resist opening them. And the dream didn't melt away. There was a blazing fire in her room, blankets and rugs, and a feast laid out on the table. It's magic, thought Sarah. There was also a note to the little girl in the attic from a friend. When she saw it, Sarah burst into tears. Becky, Becky, Sarah whispered as loudly as she dared. Wake up! Come and see the magic. Chapter 6. The Other Side of the Wall. At the end of each long day, Becky and Sarah now climbed their attic stairs to find a fire blazing merrily and plates piled high with food. Miss Mitchin couldn't understand why Sarah and Becky were so cheerful. Perhaps Sarah is a princess after all, suggested Miss Amelia. How else could she cope so bravely? Don't be ridiculous, snapped Miss Mitchin. But she hated seeing Sarah so happy. She is looking almost well fed, thought in her mind. A few months later, just before Sarah went to work, she heard a scratching sound at the skylight. It had been snowing all night, and on the snow, crouched near the skylight, was a tiny shivering figure. Oh, it's the monkey from next door, cried Sarah. I'll coax him in. He can't stay out in the cold. As Sarah was letting in the monkey, Mr. Carrisford was greeting Mr. Phillips in the house next door. He had just returned from Paris. It wasn't the child we're looking for, Mr. Phillips said sadly. Her name was Emily, and she is much younger than Captain Crew's little girl. Mr. Carrisford sighed. Well then, he said, we must begin our search again at once. Perhaps the magic was at work again, for as he spoke, Ram Das came into the room. Sahib, he said, the girl from the attic has come. She brings back the monkey. Your monkey ran away again, Sarah explained. Shall I give him to the Lascar? How do you know he is a Lascar? Said Mr. Carrisford, smiling a little. I was born in India, explained Sarah, handing over the monkey. Mr. Carrisford sat up suddenly. And now? He asked. Now you live next door, but not as a pupil? At first, I was a pupil, said Sarah. I was taken there by my papa, but then he died without any money. And now I sleep in the attic and work for my living. How did your father lose his money? Mr. Phillips broke in breathlessly. He had a friend he was very fond of. He took all his money and ran away, said Sarah quietly. What was your father's name? Mr. Carrisford asked. Tell me. His name was Ralph Crewe, Sarah answered, feeling startled. Captain Crewe? He died in India? It's her, gasped Mr. Carrisford. It's her. What do you mean? Sarah asked. I've spent the last 2 years looking for you, said Mr. Carrisford. I was your father's friend. I didn't really lose his money, he went on. I thought I'd lost it, and that made me ill. But when I was well enough to tell your father, he was already dead. Sarah spoke as if she were in a dream. And I was at Miss Mitchen's all the while, she whispered, just on the other side of the wall. You need never go back, said Mr. Carrisford gently. I'll take care of you now. Miss Mitchen was furious when she found out. The diamond mines were real after all, she sobbed. Now I'm not going to see a penny of that money in school fees. And Sarah's taking Becky with her. I don't deserve this. When I think of all I did for that child. For the first time in her life, Miss Amelia spoke her mind to her sister. You don't deserve any of Sarah's money, she said. It's your fault for being a hard, selfish woman. Serves you right. Miss Mitchen gasped in shock. And from then on, she began to have a little more respect for her sister. The next day, Mr. Carrisford took Sarah out in the garden. So, Sarah, he said, what are you going to do with your money? I'm going to help people, Sarah replied. Just like a real princess. The end. Wow, what an ending. So students, I hope that you all enjoyed the story. I really loved it. I hope you also did. We also learned some new words that will help you to improve your vocabulary, improve your speaking. So, I will see you again next week with another story. Till then, take care. Have a good day.